Greetings, rockers! Welcome to the URO Rockcast. My name is Jeff Munson, aka Kirby Styles, and I'm going to be your host as we give you all a backstage pass into all things Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra. Tonight, on the inaugural edition of the Rockcast, I'm going to be talking with one of the founding members of the band, Sal Clemente. I've got some great questions for the good doctor, so sit back, relax, get ready to rock out. It's the URO Rockcast, people! Don't go anywhere! Rockers, what's up? It is I, Kirby Styles, Jeff Munson, as promised, here on the URO Rockcast, joining me, Sal Clemente. Yes, you can see our names on the screen because we're doing that cool Zoom thing like all those little kids do out there in the world today. And let me tell you, Dr. Defiance has some awesome content for us to absorb here tonight. Sal, thank you so much for joining me here on the Rockcast. It is going to be an absolute pleasure to discuss all things URO with you. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Styles.
Thank you, sir. So, the first question I've got for you tonight, and I bring this up because I started performing way later in life than you, and I want to know how you got your start in performing music, theater, whatever.
Okay, I'm going to make this really short because nobody wants to hear all this crap. I started doing theater when I was about 15, and my sister dragged me to an audition, and I got cast as Mr. Bumble in Oliver. Is that his
Get
name?
out.
Yeah. So, and it was a blast. I just got hooked into doing shows. And the inner ham in me came right from the beginning. And at about the same time, a friend of mine who I met doing theater started teaching me how to play some chords on the acoustic guitar. And I got hooked on, being in bands and doing shows about all at the same time. And then about I probably did about 30 shows over the course of 4, 5, 6 years, and then I decided I was going to just do the band stuff. And honestly, Jeff, my reasoning probably was a very base psychological reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in a band, you get to be on the stage the entire time. You're one of 4 or 5 guys, sometimes only 3 people. I was in a 3-piece band for a while, and you're one of the stars in the show.
I mean, you can't deny that. You gotta love the spotlight, man. You gotta love it.
It was probably all like my subconscious ego saying, me. It's all about me. Anyway, when I was about 21, I did that. I just started doing bands full time. Then when I was about 25, Darcy and I moved to Boston. Darcy, my rock, the person who basically is responsible for me being alive today.
Everybody's band mom is,
not my mom. But
no.
Yes.
The URO minus you band mom.
So anyway, yeah. So we moved to Boston in 1987. I was 25, long time ago. And then I immediately started a band. A couple of the guys from my bands in Pennsylvania moved up here with me, and we hooked up with some other people. And then a few years later, I met Alan. Alan was basically the third drummer I worked with moving up to Boston, and he and I have worked together for so long now. It's like even impossible for me to remember when we started. The early 90s.
Makes sense.
91 maybe was
okay.
When we. So that's 30 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Around 2000, we stopped playing in bars and concentrated on recording. And one of the projects we started right then was kind of a reimagining of Jesus Christ Superstar. And over the course of several years, we put the project down, we picked it back up. And when we picked it back up, we were like, well, we need a lot more people to pull this off. We need singers to play all these roles. and musicians to play the stuff that we couldn't play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we met just a ton of people. We knew a ton of people, and we pulled the people in we thought were appropriate for the project, and then we just started going to shows and meeting people and had auditions and all kinds of crazy stuff. Long story short, that's how the URO got started.
Yeah.
And then we started playing with the URO. We did basically one show in 2004.
Correct.
And the response was so unbelievable that we were like, wow, maybe this is something to do. And within the time span of a couple years, we just started playing with the URO exclusively, and then just it's been ever since then. So that's almost 20 years ago now.
That's absolutely insane. Yeah, we're coming up on 20 years almost for the band.
Yeah, and I did a rough count once of how many shows the URO has done over the years, and it's up around 200 shows, maybe closer to 250. And so we really have had a great experience playing with the band.
Absolutely. Yeah. So here's where I want to go back, because I know you jumped over this period of time, but
take me back.
You're a teenager. You're doing theater.
Yes.
Okay. You're doing Oliver. What else did you do? Where else did you cut your teeth on? What shows?
I was such a sponge. I knew nothing. My dad was actually a writer and did had a lot of experience in theater, none of which I knew until my late teens, when he started doing it again after not doing it for many, many years.
Right.
Then I was like, oh yeah, okay. So anyway, I would do whatever, because I didn't know any shows. I never went to shows, that I remembered.
Right.
I actually did go to shows with my dad. He actually wrote reviews for the local paper too, but it wasn't a thing that registered to me as like something. It wasn't as significant as watching Star Trek on TV or anything,
Okay.
Until I started to do it. When I started to do it, then it became a whole nother thing. Like, I love the live experience. I love being in front of an audience. I love the communication that happens with an audience, between the performers, the audience, and that moment in time kind of became almost like it was like a drug. I didn't really drink. I didn't smoke pot. I didn't do anything the cool kids did, because I just wasn't into it. But the performing thing was kind of like euphoric. It was a euphoric experience.
That's your
outlet. So I did it, as much as I could. And I found out, after a few years, once I kind of like got an electric guitar and started playing with bands. I mean, listen, I played a lot of horrible shows. I'm sure I was a terrible performer for a long time, but I could always carry a tune. And I had no fear on stage. So one of the things I've noticed over the years is, there's there's a stage fright factor for a lot of people on stage, especially if they have to be communicating with the audience in an improvised way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're kind of the front man of a band for a long time, front person, I should say, it becomes really important to be able to, interact with the audience in a way that lets them be part of the experience and feel really comfortable. Plus, you tend to make a lot of mistakes when you're young on stage. Audiences can be very forgiving. You got to be super unforgiving, I should say. And you have to be really comfortable with, what might happen. Anyway, it turned out I was a good front person. I could handle all that stuff. So other people wanted to play with me because I could do that and I could sing. So I was lucky, I was really lucky. And then I let them teach me all about rock and roll and all about theater, because I knew nothing. I didn't listen to, I listened to my parents' record collection, and I listened to the radio, but I wasn't like one of those people that was like, I got to have this album. I got to do this. My brother was like that. And I would just like listen to his record collection, so.
Awesome. All right. So then you're playing in bands in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Okay. And what made you say, hey, I'm giving all this up and moving north? Like, what was the impetus behind choosing Boston as the city that you'd land in, not like New York, which was probably a super gig town for musicians?
I visited all of the big cities.
Right.
Before we decided to move. New York, and I did this with Darcy. We went to New York. I'd been to LA. We went to Nashville, and we checked out Boston because a lot of great bands came from Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So moving to Boston became the choice because it definitely was less intimidating than New York or LA. It was like you could walk across Boston in an afternoon. People were really nice, even though Boston has a terrible reputation. I knew a few guys who lived here, including Sean Carey, who became our bass player for many years in the early days of when I played. And, so it just became the choice. Darcy liked it. We visited during the World Series in 1986.
Oh, that must have been crazy.
When the Red Sox lost.
Yeah.
We were in the bar when watching the game, the last couple games, and everybody was cool. But we also saw a ton of great bands. Like we'd go out every night when we were visiting, and we'd go to a different club. And every club back then, they were more picky about who they let play. We saw at least one great band every night we went out, which was amazing to me.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and they were all playing their own music. Now back in Pennsylvania, I was one of a fairly small bunch of people that played original tunes back in PA,
mm-hmm.
and it was a real struggle to get anybody to listen to you, even if you're really good. And so I was looking around back then, and I'm going, well, I can do the same thing I've been doing, or I can try something different. And probably you know this about me, Jeff, after knowing me for a while, but I'm really unwilling to kind of just sit where I've been and do the same thing. So
yes.
If I wasn't getting something new out of the URO experience over time, I would go do something different. And that's what I did. I looked at Darcy. I said, we got to try going to a different city. Boston, luckily, was cool. When we visited here, she got a job while we were visiting. That's how crazy the job market was. It was like she basically talked to a headhunter, and within 24 hours, they had given her a job offer. It was more money than she had ever seen back home. And so that was it. We moved up in 87, and kind of just never looked back really. Erie's a tough town. It's a Rust Belt town.
Right.
It's like a lot of the kind of that area of the country has lost a lot of population from the cities. When I lived there were about 150,000 people there, so it was about the size of Worcester. And since I've gone, they've lost 1/3 of their population.
Wow, that's insane.
Under 90,000, under 100,000 people live there now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a tough place to rock and roll, and especially if you're writing your own music. So
yeah,
that's why.
That was my next question.
That was a really long story. I'm sure.
No, hey, this is the stuff.
Okay.
No, this is the stuff they want, Sal. This is the stuff they want. The secret origins of the URO.
I'm gonna try to make the next part peppier.
But that was also my next question was, did you primarily see yourself as doing originals or covers? And you've said you were doing originals in Pennsylvania. Then you came to Boston. And with eventually joining up with the other co-founder of the Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra, Alan Ware, he who always asks our audience, hello, my name is Alan. And we'll get to him soon enough. But let me tell you something. They formed a group that has quite possibly the coolest name of all time, the Ultrasonics. Tell me a little bit about the Ultrasonics. I want to know. That was the first time I've ever seen a band have alter egos for their members.
Yep. Well, I'm a huge comic book fan.
Yes.
As you well know.
Mm-hmm.
And so secret identities always appealed to me, as well as, kind of the other side of that, which is being the superhero. When you're on stage, you're playing a character, kind of. It's not really you, because you, as far as I'm concerned, you step outside of yourself into another role. You as a performer. It's very hard to describe, the difference, because in order to come across as genuine, you have to present your actual self. But I always tell people, and I said this to you, I'm sure, is, we want maximum Jeff on stage.
Yes.
And so when I get on stage, it's not Sal who, is home cooking dinner or anything like that. It's maximum Sal. So, the Ultrasonics were our last effort at kind of breaking through the scene, the Boston scene.
Gotcha.
But Alan and I never did music that ultimately appealed to the gatekeepers of the Boston scene, because we were doing stuff that was a little more accessible.
Okay.
He and I both have a really keen pop sensibility. So we're doing like pop rock, funky pop rock stuff, and and putting on a crazy live show. Like we had a ton of energy on stage, but we were also singing in key and playing in key and doing a lot of things that maybe if you were that I think didn't appeal really to the sensibility, the more raw sensibility of the garage kind of scene.
Gotcha.
And so we were like, well, it's all about timing in this business. And, everything that breaks through is about talent and timing. So we just didn't have the right timing to kind of bust through and be something that was going to break through in terms of like playing bigger venues, selling out stuff, whatever. We played a ton of shows. We played Fridays and Saturdays. We headlined, but we didn't get what we wanted, which was the kind of prestige and attention that would have gotten us signed to a major label or something like that. So no big deal. We were like, what are we going to do?
You moved on.
We moved on. We did other stuff.
Yeah. Moved on to the craziest story that you've ever told me. Pardon the pause, folks. Not a dramatic pause for sure. The greatest story you've ever told me, the craziest one, was that you and Alan were writing music for TV and film.
Mm-hmm.
And please enlighten the URO Rockcast listeners as to what that entailed, because one time you told me that you basically took songs that people were dancing to and changed them up slightly. And by dancing, I mean exotic dancing.
We did. We would do anything musical, music related. So we sent a lot of demos out over the years. A few of them got into the hands of people who place music for film and television. So they would, take one of our songs or ask us to write a song because we had a studio, and they would say, I want to pitch this to Days of Our Lives or 90210 or whatever for a scene in the show, because they need music and they can't afford Bruce Springsteen or they can't afford Billy Idol or whatever. And we didn't have to write a song sounding like those people, but that's what we did. We wrote our own songs and they got placed in these shows, which was great. It was, always felt great to hear yourself on one of those shows and go, well, that's cool, Plus they paid, which was
There you
awesome.
go.
So we got what we called mail money. Like checks would just come in the mail and you'd just be like, wow, we got a check and got paid for writing a song. So that's great. Anyway, the softcore porn thing you're talking about came through a different person that I met through my brother who was in film. Anyway, this guy got hired by this company to produce this thing called Girls, 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 which I mean, it was the lead singer of Poison, whatever his name is.
Bret Michaels.
It was that guy.
Yep, that guy.
Judging strippers to decide who was the best stripper. They could not afford to use the music that these fine ladies used in their acts. And so they said to us, hey, replace all this music for us. So we got to write about 11 or 12 songs to, strippers stripping, doing pole dances, and they were quality. They did quality work, and we provided them with excellent background music for their presentation.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So folks, how do you get started in this? You go through bands and you play in bars, and then you get to write awesome music to replace music that they can't afford. That's one of the craziest stories. And when you told me that, my jaw was on the floor. I was just,
well, and here's the
just
thing.
Because it's such a unique opportunity to ape a style and watch the performance and make sure that, okay, well, right here, that needs a good guitar lick right there in that move. That must have been crazy. A lot of fun, I bet.
It was fun. And and I think we did a good job. And it's always been part of our philosophy to say yes to stuff.
Yep.
Somebody calls you and goes, wow, I really need this. And like there's always a reason to say no. But we were like, yeah, let's do that. What the heck? Yeah. We had nothing to lose, and it was a fun experience and taught us something about the business too, which was good. Plus we got paid.
Incredible. Always good. It's always good to get paid. So you talked earlier about how around 2000, 2001, you were thinking about the Jesus Christ Superstar album. Now, those of us who have seen the URO perform Jesus Christ Superstar, and I was in the audience for that very first performance. That was before I joined the band. And saw the sheer love of the material that everybody on stage obviously had. And I, in talking with you, knew your love for this material, and that it just radiated off of you when you talked about it. How did you come to love this Brown album that is absolutely legendary so much? What turned you on to that?
Well, when we're kids, all of us, things imprint themselves on us in terms of culture. So, if you grow up in the late 80s and you're between 12 and 17, Nirvana is the thing that blows your mind, right? Well, when I was a little kid and my dad would occasionally, be doing something else and his headphones would be laying there, I would go over to the stereo and put an album on. This is before cable, folks. So, there would be nothing on television. What would be on television would be like, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom or something, or Hee Haw. And I wasn't watching that crap if I could avoid it. So I would go to my dad's record collection, my dad and mom's record collection, and I'd go through records and I'd just put them on, put his headphones on and listen. And this is when I was probably about between 8 and 12 or something like that. The 3 albums that blew my mind and I could not stop listening to were Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Inagata Devita by Iron Butterfly.
Wow.
And the Brown album, Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar had a kind of a dual effect because not only was the music great, but the story of the album was a story I had been, kind of like also imprinted on me in a way because of my religion, which when I was young I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. So I'd heard the Christ story and mythology like over and over and over again. And I went to church. I was an altar boy, all these things. When I heard the record, that was the first time I ever thought of these mythological beings as human beings. And so it wasn't just the music that got me, it was the lyrics and the story and the way it, just everything about it just like changed the way I thought about religion and about the Christ story and about people. They became much more complex. As a kid, too, you're listening to things that are very adult in terms of theme.
Right.
And so, again, through the culture, you're learning things that you don't even understand at that point. Anyway, made a huge impression on me. And I later got, one of the first things I always wanted to do was perform that music, when I had a guitar. I don't know if you could just hear the saw buzzing in the background. When I finally learned guitar, then I learned some of the songs. I also was able to kind of in theater, like look forward to performing in that show because it was a very popular show then.
Right.
So the last theater thing I ever did was Jesus Christ Superstar. I auditioned. They didn't want to cast me in the role I really wanted.
Which was?
Well, I wanted to perform Judas.
Really?
Yep. And so they pulled me aside. I don't know, maybe the next day. You would always have another set of auditions. And they said, Sal, we really want you to do the show. Your audition was great, but we want you to play Peter, not Judas. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
Oh.
It was the first time I'd ever done that, ever.
Right.
And so I said, it's okay, if you don't want me, but I don't think I want to do it if I don't. Anyway, they changed their minds and they gave me the part. I'm not sure why. I'm still grateful to this day that they did. But they changed their minds. They gave me the part, and it was really kind of the climax of my theatrical experience in Pennsylvania and whatever. It was also very painful.
Okay.
So I had like the highs and the lows. Like it was great to perform. The audiences loved it. I think I got an award for it or something. Everything was really great about a lot of it. And then it was also like crushing because it was so much less than I hoped it would be. So I set aside performing in shows, and that was part of the reason I decided to just be in bands. When we finally got to do it in the URO, it was a complete, it's a crazy story, Jeff.
It is.
We formed the URO because of Jesus Christ Superstar, because we were recording this version of it, which anybody in the world can do. You, Jeff, could start your own version of Jesus Christ Superstar right now, put it out into the world. It's completely, all you have to do is pay the fee for the rights and you're done.
Right.
But when we wanted to perform it live, we could not do that. There was no way for us to do that the way we wanted to when the band first started, which is why the band started doing other material.
Exactly.
Alan and I looked at each other and said, we got so many people. What are we going to do? We're like, let's do songs that should have been in rock operas. And that's how we started doing, all the crazy songs we do that nobody else can do because they don't have 10 singers and multiple instrumentalists and all this other stuff. So that's how the URO, as it is right now, came to be, completely like by mistake, organically. We just had to do it the way it is.
Yep.
But eventually, the guys at the Regent Theater, Rick and Leland, came to us and said, hey, we think we can get the rights to do Superstar. Would you guys want to do it? And I was like, really? I guess we kind of would. There was a woman who ran a theater in Norwood, still does, I think. And she was also, we had given her our CD, and she was also like, well, I love this version of Superstar. Come and do it here. And so between the Regent and the theater, the Norwood Theater, we got to perform Superstar. And the way I wanted to do it. So that was crazy experience, man.
It really was.
It was like so great to be able to like put the show together the way I always imagined it when I was 10 years old with headphones on, which was, you know, a big ass rock band playing it and the singer singing it and letting the sound of the story be the story, you know, instead of it being like, you know, almost most of it being a visual experience for the audience. So when I was a kid, think of it, right, Jeff? I got my headphones on. I'm listening to the interaction between the characters and the songs, and it's playing out inside my brain. So it's exclusively like sound and imagination. So to do something like that with our band, because we have such talented people that we could just, with our tight little outfit, perform the show. It's awesome.
It is. That was an absolute pleasure.
It was like a 40-year circle closing.
Yep. It all comes around. And let me tell you, boys and girls out there in URO land listening to this wonderful Rockcast and a saw working in the background, we're going to get more in depth someday with both Sal and Alan. As Sal is wont to say, you know it's live when there's these kinds of things happening. So we're going to get into the secret origin of the URO in depth with both Sal and Alan at some point. So we're going to break that all down for you because it's a crazy story, the exact nature of this whole Jesus Christ Superstar flowing in and out of the existence of the URO.
We might get in trouble just talking about it, Jim.
We might, but you know what? Our fans deserve to hear the story.
Let them come.
Let them come for us. Let them come.
Come on, Andrew.
Bring it on. All right. So normally at this point, I would ask, how did you end up in the URO? But guess what? You formed it. We already know how that happened.
Right.
The big thing is that obviously, based on the fact that your band in the 90s was the Ultrasonics, you came up with the words Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra. Tell me, you gave me the name of the person that kind of coined this phrase.
Sure.
Tell the world who actually coined Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra. Let's give them a shout out.
Well, so here's a little brief story. Alan and I found the Regent Theater, not, the first people to find it, but we went to see a movie there. We went to see The Seven Samurai because I love that movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's go see it at a movie theater. This would be great. Alan also, so we're simpatico about a lot of things, obviously. And he's like, yeah, let's go. So we went and we're in there. We're looking around. We're going, they got a stage and a sound system. There's some lights up there. Dude, this is a great little joint. I never knew it existed really. So we called up the theater, met with the guys who run and own it, which would be Leland, Rick, and the owner of the building, Gary. Back then he was involved in the theater decisions. And we said, we got this crazy idea to do a big show with a big band. So crazy enough, again, these guys are like, sure, we'll do that. We said, yeah, you guys are aware we have no money. We can sell some tickets, maybe. Let's hope so. They were like, we love this idea. They loved it. Anyway, So we go back to some of the people we've been recording with, and we start asking them, were you guys into this? We'll put a band together and we'll do a show. Everybody was pumped to do it, right? And then we're looking around and we're going, we don't have a name, you know. One of the guys we were working with, C. Moon Mullins, also known as Moon.
Yep.
Or exclusively known as Moon. He played our Caiaphas on our recording of Jesus Christ Superstar. Did a fantastic job. And, you know, I'd never seen him perform or anything. I learned he was a crazy character on stage, really dynamic performer. Anyway, so I one day I just must have been musing, like, I don't know what we're going to call it. He goes, oh, I know what we're going to call it. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, that's surprising me, but hit me. He was like, we're going to call it the Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we are. That's a great name. Yeah, one thing about me, Jeff, I have no qualms about, you know, taking the best idea in the room.
Yep.
And so when we heard that, we were just like, well, that's perfect. And that's how the name came to be.
That's crazy. That's an absolutely awesome story. Having known Moon for a little bit, back when I was just an audience member, and being blown away by, as you said, his crazy on-stage persona. That guy was a great addition to the band, and
he gave
and the fact
his
that
all.
Yeah,
he gave his all every show,
every time. So we talked earlier about alter egos. So everybody in the URO kind of has a stage name. Yours is Dr. Defiance.
Yes.
And when you sent me, because, you know, much like all those professional, you know, David Letterman types out there, I sent all the people in the URO a little pre-interview questionnaire so I could have some way to guide everybody through this crazy interview. And I got the answer for your band name influence, and I never knew it. I've known you since 2005-ish, and I never knew this, and it touched my heart.
Oh.
And please tell us all the genesis of Dr. Defiance as your stage name.
Okay. So when so my dad passed away in 1992. Unlike a lot of people I found out in my life, we had a unique relationship. He was a mentor as well as my dad, because he was an artist and he was a writer and he understood art. He really understood me wanting to be an artist. So like when I was like, you know, I'm going to leave town, Dad, he was like, go, get out, do something, you know? And he would give me advice all the time. You know, advice I really needed, you know, helped us if we needed money, anything, you know. He was a great guy. Anyway, I found out after he passed, he had been working in the theater in Pennsylvania, you know, a long time. I was so single-minded. I didn't pay super amount of attention to what he was doing back there. He had been working with this group of kids writing plays for them, comedies, funny little plays that, you know, they would make up songs to, and they would perform at their school or do whatever. And his pen name for those plays was Alonzo D. Defiance. And I was like, that's awesome. And when we came up with the idea to be the Ultrasonics and essentially be a group, you know, so the Ultrasonics was like the Avengers, right? Or whatever, you know, the Justice League. Only obviously it's kind of an oral term, you know, ultrasonics having to do with high frequency sound waves. And that's another story, by the way, where the ultrasonics comes from. But, you know, we decided to do that. And I was like, hey, everybody, we got to come up with different names. And it was really easy. We came up with a bunch of great names right away. And I was just like, well, Dr. Defiance. That's going to be my name, Dr. Alonzo D. Defiance. So on our first record, that's how I'm billed. I mean, we did a couple records, and that's the name I used. I didn't use my even Sal, anywhere. I took my dad's name and I used that as my stage name. When we started the URO, it's like I just kept it rolling, and so not everybody kind of knows that. We don't not crazy about like keeping that like a thing with everybody. They don't have to do it if they don't want to.
Exactly.
But I enjoy it,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how I came up with my personal, my little moniker. And the Doctor's there because, again, I love, sci-fi and comics. And I was like, oh, Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom. There's a whole bunch of doctors. I'll be a doctor. I always wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
No, I just call myself.
You're a doctor of music. You're a doctor of musonomics. I just made that term up.
The Doctor of Rock.
Oh, yeah.
That's all. Doc Rock. So
that pretty much is just an amazing story. And like I said, when I read it, I was at work, and you hit me up with the email saying, check this out if you need it for tonight. And I was like, and I read through it, and I was like, it gave me pause, because I figured the Dr. Defiance part was purely comic book driven, but the fact that your dad used it as a pseudonym, I'm like, this guy, he's just all about family. You've got a great family.
I do.
I'm lucky. Your wife and daughters are like my family. They're like my mom and sisters, and they're like that for the whole band. I mean, we're all just one big giant family, and that the fact that your band name came from your dad just reinforces that whole picture of you that I have. That was really just fun. I just wanted to just say that's really cool and really sweet.
Thanks.
So,
all right,
covered your influences.
Yes.
They're obviously based on our set list. Brit rock, big time. You've gone on record in saying that the Brown album blew your mind, Quadrophenia blew your mind, the White album's blown your mind, Sgt. Pepper's. Anybody that has been a fan of the URO can see your musical influences on stage, and you helped introduce me to a lot of these albums, so thank you for that. Before we get to our big last question, we are going to have a rapid fire round of questions that I like to call the URO Rock Blast. So this is good. Can we get 60 seconds on the clock? No, we can't. Why? Because we don't have that kind of a budget, and I'm sitting in my dining room. So we're going to do this real quick. First answer that comes to mind. Here we go. I'd say 60 seconds on the clock, but we already covered that. Big questions. Best comic book you ever read?
Oh, my.
I had to start with the stumper, folks.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I got it. The very first Infinity Stone saga in Warlock and Avengers and Marvel Team Up.
There we go. I thought that
Look it up, suckers. Look it up.
Yeah. Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
Beatles or Elvis?
Beatles.
There we go. I thought so. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Both.
Both. Wow.
I got both,
Jeez.
Man.
I wish I had a buzzer, because I'd be like,
wait right there. Wait.
Okay.
See if I can do this right. You don't recognize that? That's the original Bird of Prey.
Yes, and folks, believe it or not, that was pretty much how they did the special effects on Star Trek back in the day.
We just did it right then.
We just did it.
We did it.
Vocals or instruments?
Oh my God. Vocals.
Okay. Any reason?
Well, that's the first thing you listen to.
All right. Here's a weird one that I thought of while having lunch today. Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, or Starship?
None of the above.
None of the above.
But
I
if I had
thought
to
for sure
pick,
you'd just stump everybody and go, Starship, yeah!
yeah,
We
if I
built
had
this
to pick,
city!
if I had to pick one, you're an evil man. If I had to pick one, it had to be airplane.
That's what I figured as well.
Yeah.
Favorite science fiction author?
Roger Zelazny.
There we go. Yep, you've turned me on to him.
Okay.
And for your final big question, best comic character ever created?
The Invincible Iron Man.
Wow. Okay. All right. That would have been a deep cut 10 or 15 years ago, boys and girls. But nowadays, we all know who Tony Stark is.
Yeah. But I'm an old school Iron Man guy.
Yeah,
So,
indeed.
but I think actually like his take on him, man. It's not that far from the guy I imagined, just a little funnier.
Absolutely. He definitely it was definitely more snarky and funny, but right on that, just nailing it of who Tony Stark is in my head in terms
Still
of
a rich playboy, inventor.
Yep,
guy.
He was perfect.
But there's so many great ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was a little more than 60 seconds. Maybe we'll have to get some sort of game clock in here for our next journey.
That was quick for me, though, man. You're lucky.
It was. I was very impressed. It's very impressed. I left off a few questions just because I couldn't really formulate them perfectly. But that's okay. We'll get into them at another time. So, I asked all members of the URO, every single one of you lovely people, tell me one little thing, one weird thing that I may not know about that I can ask you about. And you answered me with something I did know, but don't know too much about beyond the fact that I heard this story in the green room one time and was genuinely going, huh. So please tell our URO Rockcast listeners and viewers all about the time that you met and possibly made uncomfortable Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for, all right, fine. Yes. So we played a show in San Francisco. We got hired before the big crash in 2008, people would hire us to travel all over the country, sometimes Canada, to go and perform. And we got hired to go to San Francisco. And so we're on a bill with us and Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper's a headliner. What we didn't know was that Cyndi Lauper was on the main stage in a big hall, and we, the Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra, all 20 plus of us back then, were in front of the buffet. I cannot express to you how much money we made for playing in front of a buffet, but this goes to show you the excess of corporate America. At any rate, we're backstage waiting to be doing our thing in front of the buffet, and they're feeding us because that's what they do at these corporate things. You go inside a tent so nobody can see you, and they bring you a meal. And they bring us a meal, and there's other people, the crew, everything else. And I'm sitting there with several people in the URO who shall remain nameless. Many of the young ladies in the URO. And I am sitting there looking, and I watch as the icon, who is Cyndi Lauper, sans makeup, sans, giant poofy hairdo and all that other stuff, walks in to get her meal. And she sits across the table from us. And we're on our side of the table. There's Cyndi Lauper sitting by herself over there. I'm looking at the other people in the band. I'm going, and they're acting like this is one of the crew or something. So I stand up, I look at them, and I go, this is Cyndi Lauper. So I walk around the table, which it wasn't a big table, it was just a little table. Mm-hmm. And I go, I just gave her a hug. And said, have a great show. And I walked back around and, I don't think I made her uncomfortable.
No, no, no.
I think she saw me coming and understood, here's a wee man who is playing in front of the buffet with his giant band, and he knows I'm a god of rock. So I just that was it. The weird thing was that, nobody believed me that it was Cyndi Lauper until, I hugged her and she said a few words, and in that voice that she has,
yes,
instantly recognizable voice, she said something like, well, thank you very much, or something like that. I can't possibly do her voice.
It's pretty unique.
At that point, the rest of the band figured out, yeah, that's indeed Cyndi Lauper. I don't know. That's how I remember it anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one of your, future guests will come on and say, that guy's full of crap. It's not Cyndi Lauper. It was indeed Cyndi Lauper.
It was Cyndi Lauper all the way. You know her by her voice. See, that's the kind of content, people.
Also, the very best thing to happen from the time we left Logan to the time we got back. Because playing in front of the buffet is no fun.
No. No. We have done together only one real corporate gig that I would call corporate. That was when we had to play for 3 hours at at some sort of banquet in Worcester.
Oh yeah,
remember that? Yeah, we were one of several. There we go. It's live and it's being recorded, folks. When I tumble over words,
over those, Jeff.
I am butchering the English language right now.
Tuck and roll, my friend. Tuck and roll.
We were one of several bands that were going out and performing, and we did a 3-hour set in the afternoon with no break. And I think your exact words to me were, if you got to pee, better pee now. That was a great show, though. It was a lot of fun.
I got all kinds of priceless advice.
Oh, so much advice. So much advice. Well, ladies and gentlemen,
that's it. And on that note,
this is the end.
There's a guy off stage right now going to Jeff. Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Paul Schaefer's in the back, folks. He's getting ready to come out and play on the wonderful piano and sign us off here. No, in all seriousness, Sal, this has been a dream of mine to do a show like this. You probably don't remember this because we've been to so many movies together. But shortly after I joined the band, the first thing I said to you was, we've got to do a podcast. We've got to do a secret origin of the members of the URO and a secret origin of the URO. And this is back when we were turning 10. We were getting to those double digits. We never did it because I kind of wimped out on it and really just wanted to concentrate on becoming a good performer. But we've been in the band together for, 7 years at this point, which is crazy to think about. And you've been doing this since 2004. We're now in 2021. My thoughts were, let's get the band back together, get everybody hyped up for our New Year's show. And I'm here to tell you, folks, that New Year's show, we've got 18 months of pent up energy to get out on stage. And you've seen me and you've seen Sal on stage. 18 months of not being able to let go and do what we love is going to come out on New Year's Eve. And
I have more advice for you then.
Yes, sir.
Don't forget to stretch.
Oh, I'll definitely, you know me, man. I'm right? Yoga master. I'm yoga
Those
man.
Hammies. Yeah. You don't want to pull a hammy.
Never. It'll be instantly known because the high notes will get really high. But
yeah, you're right. It's going to be
an amazing time.
Yeah.
I am so looking forward to it. I have seen you in person because we have kind of formed a little pod with the Clemente family, myself and my wife. And we have seen a few members of the URO here and there, but we have not, all 15 of us, been in a room together since February of 2020 when we did our last show. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be epic. You're all going to want to be there. I speak for myself when I say that I swear to you This will be the best money you will have spent in 2021 buying a ticket for the New Year's Eve show. And that is a Friday. There's also on that weekend another day, a Saturday. And perhaps, if demand is strong enough, we can come back and do another show on that Saturday. I think I can convince everybody that would be a great idea. Mostly because we don't want to break down the stage after that last show at midnight plus. So you never know, folks.
You have to be careful.
We could have some big announcement coming very soon.
You have to be careful how much you reveal, Jeff. You don't want to tell everybody that we're the crew and the band.
Oh, listen.
We have lackeys who do that stuff.
We have lackeys now. Do we let them out from underneath the stage and they're just like, yes, master?
Well, we're the lackeys, but still.
The lackeys.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do another night. And
I am too.
I think I have heard, and I'll have somebody confirm this with you, but the tickets are selling well. I
have seen and heard the same thing as well.
Yeah. So I think I'm optimistic we're going to do a second night.
Yeah, and I am absolutely looking forward to it. I hope you all are looking forward to it. Dr. Defiance, Sal Clemente, master of the URO, keeper of the flame of classic rock, as we ignite the future of classic rock with the Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra. Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to chat with you. Let's have a beer soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Way to go, Jeff. Hey, and thank you so much for doing this. I think you are the perfect URO person to be the conduit and kind of get us back in people's good graces and let them know we're still alive and kicking. And thank you for doing this, man.
Oh, really anytime. And when we get to my secret origin, where we will do a little script flip and you'll be interviewing me, at least that's my plan. You'll find out why I enjoy doing this so much, because your boy Kirby Styles was not always going to be a singing pharmacist comic book seller. He was going to try and be the next Walter Cronkite. That was my original plan. So there's a little teaser for you for a couple weeks from now. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stop right here. Thanks for your attention. We love you, and you know it. Let me tell you, Sal, thanks again. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you soon. Next up in the rotation, it's going to be that tiny British man, and by tiny, I mean incredibly tall, Alan Ware. Thank you all for watching the URO Rockcast. Have a great night.